said, okay, there's something happening, but we can't
Go
quite
around this
figure
corner,
out,
and then we're on
like, why it's
Christie
happening. The
Shore
problem was
North,
very
or
much
Christie
there,
Lake North
but there
Shore.
wasn't like an easy, oh, you know, you have a problem with your liver or that kind of thing. So this
Yeah,
kept
look at all
getting
that
worse
energy
over the
we're
summer,
getting for
but like,
stopping.
you know, July, August, September, October, it gets
Or
worse and worse and
returning.
worse. And I'll be honest with you, I basically was struggling quite a bit with this. I went to Emerge a few times. I started drinking a little bit to kind of cope with it, and it just got to a point where I started having suicidal thoughts. And I actually went into Emerge one time for suicidal ideation. They said, you know, you seem like you're okay, so I came out. And then the second time I went, I was kind of the mindset that I was like, listen, I'm not leaving until I get the help I need. And so, I know I spoke to the doctors, and what we decided was it was best to enroll into the psychiatric ward, get some of the psychological help I needed. But yeah, it was actually, for me, there was actually a physical trigger
Down to
that
6.
caused kind of an emotional, mental trigger, that suicidal ideation. And then after that is, you know, when I finally was like, I need to go to the hospital.
How did it make you feel knowing that, you know, the first time you went there, they turned you away? How do you think, looking back at it now that you have some perspective?
You know, looking back now, it's very disappointing that they didn't even, for example, you know, do a psych hold, like the 72-hour psych hold. And so it is disappointing, because I think, like, I went in there asking for help, you know, and like, they did, to be fair, put me in touch with a psychologist, I think, in the department. I spoke to them Wednesday, but it was like,
Down to 5.
it just seemed like no one had the urgency I had. I was like, here I am, having some really awful thoughts about what I want to do to myself, and like, no one seems to have the same sense of urgency. So it was very disappointing, and that's why when I went the second time, I was like, if I'm leaving, I'm leaving kicking and screaming, like someone's kicking me out of here, you know. And so the first time had a very big impact on, I think, how I'll think about our healthcare system forever.
If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in Canada.
Oh, gotta
Now,
stop.
even though you feel like you need to be in the hospital,
Don't want to get
and your
hit
community
by a
or
train,
loved
like
ones
old
agree
Tom.
you need to be there, it's ultimately up to the doctor, a psychiatrist, who decides if you can stay. I rang up Dr. Ishrad Hussain to ask how he
Any
decides.
trains?
Generally, it's
I
determined
don't see
by
any
the
trains.
severity of the illness that we are observing, and that is often tied in with a safety assessment, whether the patient is safe enough to leave the hospital and to be treated in the community from home, and that safety assessment often involves an assessment of their risk to themselves or a risk to other people.
On the flip side, sometimes you don't realize you need to be
See,
hospitalized.
I think we'd have
until you're
way more
already
than
out. That's
the
maybe for
advertised
you.
mileage if we
It
always
makes you believe
drove
you're fine,
at
even when
this
you're
speed.
not. Someone could try to explain why you're
It would take a lot longer to get places,
but in that state,
but not that
they'll probably
much
argue
longer.
that they're wrong and you're right.
Oh, down to 4. See, by now, me and Arthur were at 0. No, we didn't. Where did we get to 0? Was it on Tizic?
So throughout my entire time in the hospital, in the psych ward,
See-
it was kind of a battle
Oh, to Brook
between
Valley,
me and
okay.
the psychiatrists and the
Yeah, and
nurses.
then
This
we
is
were
Michael
just
Scumo.
barely
He's a writer
accelerating at
and works in
all.
real
Yeah, we could
estate
barely
in New
move. We
Jersey.
were moving at a walking pace.
I felt that I was not supposed to be there, and
And then I think we were under
should've been there.
100 meters left
So
when we
it probably wasn't until
Oh, no, it was a 0. It doesn't have any kind of meters.
Cooled off and my mindset had kind of relaxed a bit. That I
But
was
yeah,
able to look back and say,
it doesn't always tell you the true amount,
senior
because they
year,
don't want you to try to get to 0.
definitely went off the rails, and I'm glad that
What were you
other
pointing
people
at?
were able to realize that and stuck in.
Oh, down to 3. How's the Think
When I
Blue
was
trainer?
first
What's it say?
admitted to the hospital,
Doing good
I
at
was
this
brought
speed,
into
huh?
the ICU. That's the intensive care unit. It was small. It had
Look at all
a
that
tiny
energy we're getting
window
off
with
those
a
wheels.
curtain. It gave the idea of privacy, but not much else. The nurse's station was across the hallway. You could hear and see everything. There were other
We might
patients
get
there
down to
too,
0 this
most
time.
experiencing
Nah.
some of their lowest moments.
Maybe 1.
It wasn't easy being surrounded by
If I start
that,
driving
but it
fast.
reminded me I wasn't alone.
But it won't let me
in what
drive
I was
fast.
going through.
Look at
The
that.
thing that is kind of unique about
That's
a
neutral.
psych ward
We
compared
might
to
hit
other
0
places in the
when we get
hospital is
That's neutral.
because you're worried about
I don't have
the way
the
people
speed
can harm
set.
themselves, right?
I
Where
should set it
they
there.
try to minimize everything that will do that. So the rooms rooms
Some
themselves
energy
are
there.
good, except for a couple of outlets.
Or
There's
get it
nothing
back,
that
you know.
extends from the walls where you could potentially harm yourself. There's very little that you're actually allowed to have. Like if you have a laptop,
I told it to keep
you
us at
can't have
30.
your power cord. The power cord is up with the staff. They charge your computer for you. You can't have any kind of long cord. Even the
So it'll give us some energy to go down hills at this speed.
I think what you're referring to was a drawstring. Yeah, that's it.
You're not
But it's
allowed
gonna
to have
crawl
that
up the hills.
because people, again, you can hurt yourself with that.
Still
Once
gaining
I got
energy
healthier, I got moved up to the 17th floor.
off those
This new
hills.
space felt
Now we have to
different.
use a bunch back.
The room was bigger. I even had my own bathroom. That was nice.
Going uphill.
It felt
Uses
like
all the
progress.
energy. Almost to our
I
max
remember
power.
a steady stream of nurses checking in on me, at least 3 times a day. Most of
Downhill
them
again, but not
are
enough to gain
blurred
any
out.
speed
But
because we
one
weren't going
nurse
fast.
really stood out. He made a big impact on my recovery.
I bet we get to
Nearly 2 years
maybe
later,
one, but
I
probably
reached
just
out to
2.
him. I wanted to know what it was like to
It works
care for
it works
a
very hard to be
bipolar
efficient
patient from his
when it's this low.
perspective.
My name is Lucas Goldman. I'm a psychiatric registered nurse, and I've been working for well over a decade.
What did you notice while working with me?
Well, I noticed that you were having a lot of difficulty, and this is a long time ago, bear in mind. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I noticed you were having a lot of difficulty connecting with the system, and I wanted to assist you through that. And through working with you
Are we still
very
on
closely
two?
for like
Nope,
the span
3.
of several weeks, we did form a connection, and
No,
was
I think
able
we
to
might
address
get to
some
2.
of your concerns and assist you in.
I don't want to
building
block
trust
people on Brook
as
Valley
trying
Road, so I
to
better put
charm
it
the
up to
system.
40 or
I think
so.
also like the idea of fight or flight.
Yeah.
When you're in a hospital in that type of setting, you can't really fight.
Right.
So what I was trying to do was like put up a front to kind of like
We're 1 kilometer
fight
from home,
against what at the time I thought was
Excellent.
people
and the length of the
with
driveway.
misintentions towards me.
Right. That makes perfect sense. You wanted control.
Of course, we
of the
gotta go up this
situation
big
where you
hill.
felt vulnerable. Okay.
I'd say so, but yeah.
I think the biggest thing was the trust issue. So you're in a room, a different environment. It's kind of cold. The lights are
Almost
a little bit
to our
darker than most
fullest
rooms
power.
might be, and that's obviously by design. We try and decrease stimuli in order to, through evidence-based information, we know that it
Gaining a
assists
little back.
patients in getting better. However, the room's not
Faster.
welcoming. It does feel a little bit cold
Got lots
and
of fuel
impersonal.
left.
You feel like you're institutionalized, and that's obviously by design because we want to make people feel like there's something to work towards. There's it's a better life for them back home.
Made it,
They
no
wanna feel
problem.
More welcome at home. So
Oh, down to
you want
1.
to feel less like you're at a hotel and more like you're at an intermediate place where you're going to get better and you're going to feel the desire to go back.
I go back up to 2 though.
To something more conducive to your
No, we're
well-being.
gonna stay at 1 or below.
Life in a mental health ward is structured.
Could get to zero.
I'd wake
We
up.
might. We gotta go up
nurses
this hill
would check
right
my
here.
blood pressure 3 times per day. A psychiatrist stopped by to ask about my mental state. After leaving the ICU, I was allowed to watch
It's all
TV
foggy because we don't have
and
environment controls on.
Meals came to my room. Same time, every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At night, I take my meds. I then do it all over again. The next day, every day, for 3
And I can
months.
slow down to get
That's
ready
the
for
point of
Seaborn
the psych
Lane.
ward. The structure. Meals, meds, sleep, and some exercise all helped bring my
I wonder
mania
if
down
turning off
and
the
kept me
screen will do
steady.
anything.
Probably
Visitors
not.
came to see me every
I still have
day.
headlights too.
That made the days feel shorter. I didn't connect much with the others in the unit, but the visitors kept me going.
0. All right. We don't have any power left at all.
He found community in the psych ward.
Yeah, we have the
The
difference
longer I was
between
there,
0
the
and
more
1.
people I got to know. I actually made some really good friends, and like we used to watch, TV together. Like there was a World Cup at that time, so we were watching the World Cup together. We watched
0.
These, stupid Netflix
All right,
shows
we'll
about
charge it up.
cooking and that kind of thing. So the socializing for me was
way
awesome.
close. Not as close as
No, not as close as last time.
When I first got into the
the second
hospital,
encounter.
I
with
couldn't
zero.
sleep. I was in a new place, not my own bed, and I wasn't
This
moving
does use a
much,
lot of
just
energy to go
sitting
through
around
the snow.
all day. The staff gave me sleeping pills for a while, but I didn't want to rely on them.
And this hill momentum.
So I started walking, just pacing back and
Oh,
forth
Karen
in my
went
room,
home.
wall to wall. I had 2 yellow smiley face balls, and I'd hold them in each hand. I touched the wall with each ball. I did this for hours and hours on end. I felt like a lion in his cage at the zoo, pacing back and forth. I remember telling myself, if you can't